I never imagined my Tuesday morning would start with a van exploding next to my chicken coop, launching my 6-foot rooster into the sky like a feathered missile. The sound split the air, the ground shook, and feathers rained down like snow in a nightmare Christmas. I stood there barefoot, hose in one hand, burnt waffle in the other, watching Big Randy, one of the HOA painters, running across my lawn covered in orange dust, screaming something about eco-friendly paint. It was supposed to be non-toxic. And that, right there, was when I realized the HOA had officially lost its mind. See, I never wanted to live in a neighborhood with a homeowners association. My wife did. She said they keep things orderly. She forgot to mention orderly meant you couldn't breathe without written permission from a woman named Carol, our HOA president, judge, jury, and executioner of all things suburban. She had the soul of a bureaucrat and the heart of a parking ticket. Carol loved control like some people love gardening. And last week, she decided my barn, an old, lopsided structure my granddad built, was aesthetic pollution. Sure, it leaned a little, sure, it had missing shingles, but it had history, the smell of wood and dust, the squeak of the old doors that had been there longer than most of the neighbors. Inside were my tools, a few heirlooms, and 6 chickens with names I'd never admit in public: Martha Pluckington, Cluck Norris, and the rest of my girls. Then came the letter. An envelope slid into my mailbox like a threat wrapped in legalese. Your barn has been selected for revitalization under the HOA Beautification Initiative. No signature, no opt-out, just a date and a warning. Ensure all property and livestock are cleared by 8 a.m. At 7:55 the next morning, a smoking van rolled down the street like a dying dragon. 3 painters spilled out. Big Randy, a wall of muscle. Dex, a twitchy guy who looked like he'd snort paint if it helped his art career, and a nervous teenager named Kyle in a shirt that said "Spray it, don't say it." They unloaded barrels with no labels except a sticker: Sunburst Solutions, Eco Paint Division. They didn't knock, didn't ask permission, just started setting up. "Hey," I yelled from my porch, "what's in those barrels?" Randy shrugged. "Paint. Probably. Smells weird," I said, "like mangoes and nail polish." He laughed. "Guess it's the green stuff?" It wasn't. 10 minutes later, one of my chickens wandered too close and got blasted with whatever came out of that sprayer. The poor thing went from brown to neon shimmering rainbow in seconds, squawking like it had seen God. Dex tried to wipe it off and ended up glowing himself. "Sustainable solvent," he said proudly, like that made him less radioactive. And then, boom. At 9:17 a.m., something in that van ignited. A flash of orange, a blast of sound that punched the breath out of me, and suddenly my yard looked like the 4th of July went to hell. The shockwave knocked the barn door clean off, sent the paint sprayers spinning through the air, and scorched half my lawn into modern art. 5 minutes later, the fire department showed up. 10 minutes later, Carol came speeding down the street in her golf cart, sun hat, heels, clipboard, ready to assign blame. "Why was your barn improperly ventilated?" she snapped, scribbling notes like she was at a murder scene. "Because your painters blew up a van full of mystery chemicals," I shouted. She frowned. Sometimes community pride requires sacrifice. Then the fire marshal arrived, tall, serious, with that calm tone of a man who's seen too many bad ideas. He lifted a melted barrel lid and muttered, "This isn't regular paint. It's reactive, heat-sensitive. Might even be military grade." Everything went still. Even the chickens stopped making noise. When the smoke cleared, one barrel sat untouched near the coop. It had a label: "Property of U.S. Experimental Division. Do not use without clearance." That's when my gut dropped. This wasn't about beautifying barns. This was something else, something wrong. The next morning, the HOA sent a cheerful newsletter titled "Temporary Setback Equals Opportunity for Community Growth." It had a cartoon paintbrush smiling like it knew something I didn't. My wife tried to calm me. "Maybe it was an accident," she said, but then I clicked the link at the bottom. Phase 2 Rollout, Rustic Revival. It was a map of the entire neighborhood. Every backyard labeled, color-coded, scheduled for enhancement. Ours was tagged Ground Zero. That's when I realized Carol wasn't fixing anything. She was testing something. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak outside made me think someone was rolling another barrel down the street. Around midnight, I grabbed a flashlight and went out to check behind the coop, where the intact barrel had been. It was gone. No drag marks, no tire tracks, no footprints, just a patch of grass that looked bleached, dead, like even the earth didn't want to remember what had touched it. I hadn't told anyone about that barrel. Not my wife, not Randy, not Dex. Which left one person who could have taken it, Carol. The next morning, she doubled down on her campaign. Flyers showed up on every mailbox. Beautification Phase 2, restoring the spirit of our neighborhood. And beneath the cheerful tagline, attendance mandatory. That word stuck in my head like a splinter. Mandatory. By noon, I saw her in my yard with 2 HOA board members, measuring my hedge height with a laser level. I stepped outside, half laughing, half furious. Carol, what are you doing? She didn't even look up. Ensuring symmetry, she said. It's for everyone's peace of mind. Peace of mind. Right. That night, someone spray-painted the word comply across my driveway in neon green. I laughed at first, but when I realized the handwriting matched the fancy calligraphy Carol used on HOA flyers, the humor dried right up. That's when I decided I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. I found Dex behind the gas station, painting an old vending machine to reclaim it from corporate monotony, as he put it. I bribed him with 2 energy drinks and a bag of gummy worms, and after half an hour of jittery rambling, he finally told me the truth. The paint, he said, it wasn't from Sunburst. Carol said not to ask for receipts. She got it cheap from a government auction, declassified surplus or something. Declassified my ass, I said. Dex nodded nervously. One of the barrels hissed when we opened it. Kyle got scared, started Googling the numbers printed on the label. He found something called Project Tundra Bloom. That was the first time I heard that name, and it wouldn't be the last. 2 days later, Kyle disappeared. His phone went straight to voicemail. His apartment door hung open, mail piling up inside. Randy said Kyle had been muttering about formula drift and liability before leaving town. The kid had looked pale, scared, like he'd stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. I was angry, but more than that, I was curious. If Project Tundra Bloom was behind this, I wanted to know what it was. So I did what any rational man with a fried lawn and disco chickens would do. I broke into Carol's house. It wasn't hard. She slept like the dead. The parrot screamed, "Violation! Violation!" from the hallway, but I managed to sneak past it. The basement was cold, cluttered, and filled with filing cabinets labeled by street name and compliance rating. My name had its own drawer. Inside, photos of my yard, lists of my complaints, and something that made my stomach twist, psychological notes. High resistance, low conformity, potential disruptor. Then I saw a folder labeled Project Tundra Bloom, Phase 3 Directive. Inside were memos stamped confidential, purchase orders for aerosol agent TB, and one chilling line. Convert target community into controlled habitat for behavioral observation. Subjects must remain unaware. I didn't even hear the parrot start shrieking again. I just grabbed everything and ran. By the time I got home, I knew Carol wasn't just a control freak. She was a cog in something bigger, something corporate, military, maybe both. The next day, I found Kyle's burner phone in my mailbox, no note attached. When I powered it on, there were 3 messages and a single video. The text said, "They lied about the paint. Phase 3 isn't cosmetic. Carol has clearance codes." Then I opened the video. It was Carol, in her office, on a call with someone identified only as Director Halverson. "Shipment confirmed," she said. "Testing proceeding as planned. Behavioral stabilization levels rising." I stared at the screen, feeling my blood turn cold. That night, 3 unmarked white vans arrived on our street. The same kind of vans I'd seen in the footage from the warehouse Dex had mentioned. No logos. Just men in khakis unloading gray boxes onto every light pole. I asked one what they were. He smiled politely. "Mood stabilization sensors," he said. "HOA approved." That was the moment everything clicked. The paint, the files, the missing barrel. It was all part of a bigger experiment. They weren't beautifying houses. They were modifying people. So I gathered a few neighbors, the ones who'd started calling themselves the Barn Brigade. Randy, Dex, even a few folks who used to think I was crazy. And we made a plan. The Block Bloom Festival was coming up, and Carol planned to unveil Phase 3, Synchronized Serenity. It was supposed to be a celebration. We were going to turn it into an exposé. We printed flyers with snippets of Carol's memos, screenshots from the burner phone, QR codes linking to the video of her call with Halverson. Dex volunteered to make a distraction. I didn't ask what kind. The festival started under perfect blue skies. Carol stood on a glitter-covered podium, grinning like a dictator at a birthday party. "This is the dawn of harmony," she announced. Right then, Dex stormed the stage in a rainbow-painted hazmat suit, throwing glitter and shouting, "The barn speaks for all." The crowd gasped, laughed, then stared as phones began buzzing. Kyle had hacked the HOA app. Every screen in the neighborhood lit up with his message. They aren't making it prettier. They're making it easier to control. Videos rolled. Carol's call, the files, the barrels. The truth. And then the crowd turned. Someone yelled, "You sprayed military paint on our houses." Someone else threw a lemonade at Carol. The parrot screamed, "You're fired," from her tent, and that was it. The festival imploded. But Carol wasn't finished. 2 nights later, more vans arrived, this time with guards. They started installing new uplink devices to sync the sensors. That's when Kyle came back, pale, shaking, holding a flash drive. "This is their core system," he said. "If we crash it, the whole thing dies." We met at 2 a.m. in the rain. The van was parked by the park, humming with power. We cut the lock, stepped inside, and saw rows of screens mapping our entire neighborhood, tracking sleep patterns, screen time, even outdoor noise. Carol showed up mid-hack, hair soaked, clipboard raised. "You can't stop order," she shouted. "Order isn't control," I said. "It's trust. And you lost it." Then Randy spotted a big red button labeled "Do Not Press." He grinned. "Always wanted to do this." He slammed it. Every light in the neighborhood flickered, then went dark. Phones buzzed, screens flashed. Project Tundra Bloom is real. Compliance is not community. Reclaim your homes. The sensors sparked, the vans short-circuited, and Carol screamed as her clipboard shattered into pieces. And just like that, the spell was broken. The next morning felt like stepping out of a fever dream. Quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your bones after something big breaks. The air smelled of burnt wires and wet dirt, like the world was trying to wash itself clean. The mood sensors were dead, their little lights dark. The vans were gone. The streets, once lined with pastel perfection, looked raw and real for the first time in months. Carol's house sat sealed with yellow tape, blinds drawn tight, the parrot screeching Section 5A from the upstairs window. Around 10, a couple of county inspectors and EPA agents arrived. They walked in with clipboards of their own, real ones, government-issued, and walked out hours later carrying boxes of confiscated files. I stood at my gate, half expecting Carol to burst out demanding a permit for my expression. She didn't. They let her out in cuffs, hair frizzed, still shouting about community order. Kyle said she was charged with unauthorized chemical dispersal, falsifying municipal records, and something called attempted compulsory emotional landscaping. The officer who arrested her reportedly had to say that charge 3 times with a straight face. The HOA didn't survive the day. Half the board resigned by noon. The other half turned on Carol before their chairs even cooled. Turns out entire sections of the bylaws were plagiarized from Cold War housing regulations. One guy admitted he only stayed on the board because Carol brought chocolate-covered almonds to meetings. By sundown, the neighborhood had no president, no enforcement, no rules, and somehow, for the first time, no tension. People came outside again. Kids rode bikes across lawns without fear of citations. Someone repainted their garage door with a mural of a pirate cat riding a unicycle. No one complained. A man down the street put pink flamingos on his roof just because he could. It was messy. It was free. And the barn, what was left of it, became a symbol. Folks came by to help rebuild it, plank by plank. We used reclaimed wood from Carol's confiscated storage shed. Randy handled the heavy lifting. Kyle rigged a ventilation system so nothing could explode again. Dex painted the new barn door with a mural of a chicken wearing sunglasses, holding a protest sign that read "No to glossy tyranny." We laughed more in those few days than we had all year. The neighborhood turned into something unrecognizable. Imperfect, yes, but alive. Someone started a tool share program. Another family opened a weekend cookout stand. People stopped worrying about matching shutters and started talking to each other again. Then came the town council vote. With the HOA gone, we needed some form of community management. The solution was as wild as it was simple: a rotating council chosen by raffle, one new resident every 2 months. No more lifetime presidents, no clipboards, no pastel dictatorship. The first person chosen was an 8-year-old girl named Lucy, who rode her scooter to every meeting wearing a cape and declared popsicles for all as her first decree. Her campaign manager was a lizard named Roger. The motion passed unanimously. Carol, somehow, found internet access in her holding cell and started a blog called Behind Bars and Barns, The True Cost of Order. It was half manifesto, half comedy gold. She claimed the Barn Brigade was a smear campaign funded by Big Mulch, and that the explosion was staged using compostable pyrotechnics. The blog gained a cult following of conspiracy theorists who thought the chickens were crisis actors. We let her talk. It was safer than letting her lead. As for Kyle, he stuck around. He started a consulting business for neighborhoods that wanted to de-optimize their lives. His slogan, "Let go of the grid." He printed it on hemp shirts and gave talks at farmers markets about the dangers of algorithmic lawns. Randy opened a gym called Rebel Reps, where workouts involved swinging hammers, tearing up old bylaws, and carrying sacks of chicken feed uphill. Dex turned his paint obsession into art therapy sessions for burnout suburbanites. And me? I didn't go back to being the quiet guy who just wanted to mow in peace. Something had changed. I started helping run our new community garden, planted in the footprint of Carol's old meditation labyrinth. We grew peppers, tomatoes, even one giant pumpkin we named the Gourd of Justice. It wasn't symmetrical, but it was beautiful. Then, one afternoon, a man in a suit knocked on my door. Slick hair, shiny shoes, briefcase that screamed government adjacent. He introduced himself as a private researcher, said he'd heard about the explosion, the paint, the files. Offered me $1 million for any remaining barrels. I just smiled and handed him a coupon for the taco truck parked permanently at the end of our street. "Try the spicy chicken," I said. "It's the only thing around here that still burns." He left confused. I shut the door, feeling lighter than I had in months. Every Thursday since, the whole neighborhood gathers for Taco Unity Night. We drag out chairs, bring our own plates, argue about salsa heat levels, and laugh about the days when the HOA fined us for mismatched flower pots. The kids run through sprinklers, Randy mans the grill, Dex brings glow paint for fun. The air smells like lime and freedom. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind is still, I swear I can hear Carol's parrot somewhere far away, screaming "comply" into the darkness. But it doesn't scare me anymore. It makes me smile. Because now, when I look at that rebuilt barn, rough wood, crooked roof, bright mural shining under the porch light, I see more than just a building. I see what happens when people stop letting fear dress up as order. I see proof that even when someone tries to paint over your life with control and chemicals and rules, you can always sand it down, start again, and make it your own damn color. So, I'll ask you this. What would you have done? Was I right to fight back, or did we go too far burning down the system that tried to paint us over? Tell me down in the comments. I'll be reading every one. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA gone mad, share your story. Because maybe, just maybe, your barn's still standing. It just needs a little color of its own.